Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being here for this February 2nd Groundhog Day meeting of the Ascension Parish Council. Councilman Thompson has pointed out that it is 7 o'clock, and so therefore we must begin. I will ask you all to please rise. Councilman Thomas will lead us in an invocation, after which we'll all recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
Before we start our prayer, we'd just like to recognize our troops that are fighting and their families. Let's have a solid moment for those families and for those troops that are on foreign land.
Also, let's remember Miss Fondo's husband, who is going to go open heart surgery on Tuesday morning.
Yes, sir. Let's make sure we include Miss Fondo's husband in our prayer. Thank you. Lord God, we come with praise, we come with honor, we come with glory. We come thanking you, Lord, for the opportunity to be here tonight. Lord God, as we come tonight, we ask that you give us the strength, the knowledge, the understanding to do parish business. And Father, as we're here, Lord, we ask that you bless each and every councilman, bless their president, and bless all that have come in the interest of this parish. And Lord God, as we leave this place tonight, we want to thank you, Lord, for giving us the opportunity. And as we leave, we ask that you allow each of us to get home safe and sound to our families. We ask this in no other name but the name of Jesus. And we all said, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. No, it's going to be my turn tonight, Mr. President. That sign has my name on it tonight, I think. For the roll call, please, Ms. Suzanne, let the records reflect that Councilman Savoy, Chairman Savoy, is serving the public tonight in his capacity as the Quad Area Community Action Agency, and he's out of town. So, item number 3, the chair's additions. We have... Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Mr. Todd Lambert also is not with us working tonight. Item number 3, chair's additions. We have requests for emergency 2/3 votes. I will entertain a motion. The first item that we have is Councilmember George Valentine has a request for a resolution. Councilman Valentine, would you care to explain that?
Thank you, Mr. Council Chairman McConnell. I got to get used to saying it.
I got a name tag right here. You can just read.
Certainly, with the events of the last few days in the FEMA trailer park that is located on 621, I would request that this body join me in putting this on the agenda, a resolution to FEMA. I talked with Councilman Thompson today about this exact measure, that we need to put a resolution to send to FEMA to help with a fence around this trailer park, and also if there are some expenses that they could also use to aid in security for this trailer park. I know that FEMA has done that in the past on several others. I realize that this contract that Mr. Simpson has is a little different, but I am urging FEMA to abide by a resolution.
And that's your motion to amend the agenda?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Valentine, second by Mr. Thompson, to amend the agenda to include this resolution. Is there any discussion? Is there any opposition? Discussion, yeah. Mr. Hillensbeck.
I'd like for the resolution to include that a background...
We can take that up in discussion, can we not?
Yes, we can.
All right.
This is just put on the
This is just to amend the agenda. Is there any opposition? Then the agenda is amended, and we can go ahead and take that up as soon as we handle this second one, Mr. Valentine, if that's all right with you. The second item for emergency 2/3 votes is an emergency introduction of ordinance, a draft of a temporary emergency ordinance. This was put on at the request of Council Chairman Savoy and the administration, and it is an temporary emergency district for this same sort of thing, FEMA trailer placements in Ascension Parish. And we will entertain a motion to amend the agenda to deal with this introduction. Motion by Mr. Dempsey Lambert. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Thomas. Is there any discussion?
We need
Ms. Fontenot?
At this time, it has not been through committee, and since we've got all this action going on right now, we really think that we really need to look at it, really good. So I would offer a substitute motion that we send it to strategic planning.
Question.
Wait, just a moment. Mr. Babin, you're going to have to keep me honest here. Right now, all we are discussing is whether or not to amend the agenda to put this particular item on. And is Ms. Fontenot in order to offer a substitute motion to send something to committee that we're not even discussing yet? We don't know whether we have the legal right to.
I think she can discuss the reason she doesn't want to put it on two-thirds vote. She wants to tell the reason for not putting it on two-thirds vote with head of the committee. I would limit the discussion to why you will or will not add it to your agenda. I will not discuss the merits of the issue involved. But I think she
However, but if we amend the agenda to include it, then one of the actions that we can take is to refer it to committee, yes?
Absolutely. But you could just not put it on the agenda and refer to, I think any council would conclude it on your committee agenda. Either way.
Ms. Fontenot, with that in mind, do you withdraw your motion?
I'll take it.
All right, the motion and a second to amend the agenda. Is there further discussion? Is there opposition? Objections noted by Mr. Beauregard and Ms. Fontenot. The motion passes. The amendment is agended. We'll go ahead and take that item up right away as well, and let's clear the air and get all of this out of the way. All right, so we are now on to item 3B, and that is Mr. Valentine's resolution. Mr. Valentine, you've stated it eloquently, but let's restate it once again. This is a request to FEMA.
This is a resolution from this council to FEMA that they would aid in a placement of a fence completely around this trailer park. Also, to ask for some funds dealing with security for this trailer park, and also I'd like to add a background checks on anyone that may be placed in this trailer park.
That is your motion, and it is seconded by Mr. Thompson. Mr. Hillensbeck, was that part of your...
Mr. Hillensbeck was the one that brought up the background check.
Does anybody have any discussion on this particular item? Then there's a motion and a second. Is there any opposition? Then the motion passes. Ms. Suzanne, would you get with our legal team and make sure this is drafted with the proper verbiage? Thank you. And now item 3C is this emergency introduction of an ordinance. I don't know if I should read this or not, since I suspect I know what's going to happen with it. But this is an emergency ordinance that was presented. I know that our legal counsel has reviewed it, and what it is, it's got to do with the placement of temporary FEMA trailers. Mr. O'Neill Parrington is here. Could you give us a brief discussion on it, please, sir? I would hope that has everybody received this. I know that it's been sent either by email or courier to everyone, so I was informed.
I was asked to draft this ordinance, and the circumstances are that there are, in our ordinances, we allow for secondary residence on property of at least 1 acre to immediate family members. From what I was told is there are many people in the parish who are staying with family members who are not immediate family members and who have properties which are less than 1/2 or less than an acre. So what we did was basically have an emergency ordinance which would allow for 60 days people who live in these situations to attempt to get a permit to have a secondary residence placed on their property. If everybody's had a chance to read it, it is limited to somebody who lives on a piece of property allowing someone else to have a FEMA trailer. They have to be a bona fide evacuee. They have to, it's only temporary. It has to be at least 1/2 acre. The property must be rent-free. Nobody can make any money on this. The applicant is the homeowner. He has to make the application. He's responsible for the movement of it. It can't be for commercial use. And I think it can't violate any subdivision restrictions. It's basically a secondary, a provision of secondary residence for this temporary situation.
Right. And Ms. Fontenot's comments does have merit. This has not been discussed. I know it has been sent out. I know at the request of Chairman Savoy, it was sent out and disseminated to everybody. However, you're correct, Ms. Fontenot. This was not discussed among any council members. First, let me recognize Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. President, you mentioned temporary housing. Had they put in place, how long will they leave the trailers in place?
It's for,
Is-
all the
is there set
applications must be
anything?
filed within 60 days, but the limit on the ordinance is 18 months,
18 months, okay.
which is what FEMA housing is allegedly supposed to be for 18 months.
Ms. Fontenot.
Well, Mr. McConnell, this was one of the things that I was really working with Mr. Savoy on, because at Christmas time, Mr. Hughes and I had gone out to a family that had 18 people in a house, and FEMA had already brought a trailer out there, but they weren't allowed by the parish rules to keep it because it was on the house was on less than an acre, and I thought that if we were going to do 3 per acre, that 1 per half acre would be good, but we really haven't had time to really make sure it's the correct ordinance that we want, and like the application for 18 months. I mean, the 3 trailers, I think, is 6 months, and then they can get an extension or whatever. I would think that it would be something more in line for the 1 also. So there may be some things that we need to tweak. I really think it really needs to go to committee.
So, and that's your motion to send it to strategic planning?
Yes, I make a motion that we send it to strategic planning.
There's a motion by Ms. Fontenot. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Second by Mr. Valentine. Discussion, Mr. Thompson?
I had some concerns that there are people right now that has FEMA trailer on their property, that has family living with them, and right now we have that situation going right now in motion. So I was thinking we need to act on this to make everything legal as soon as possible.
Mr. Scheck-Snyder, when's the next meeting of the Strategic Planning Committee?
Fourth Monday of the month, we can have a special meeting. I think we could have a special meeting.
You're already in 4th Monday of the month, the day before Mardi Gras. Haven't you already moved that meeting?
Yes. And, I need to say something, Mr. Chairman, when you get a chance.
All right.
Well, we'll send out notices for a special meeting.
All right. Mr. President?
Council Chairman Savoy and I and the Planning Department and I think Mr. Parrington started working on this several weeks ago. I mean, just like the resolution that was just passed is something of an urgent nature, hadn't gone to a committee. And I can understand that when it is an urgent situation. And the reason, when Jerry and I talked about, all of this was mailed out to you with your packet, a copy of this proposed ordinance that Mr. Parrington spent a lot of time on. And one of the things that came to our attention, like your council leadership got together with us on, is that we found out that some trailers have just been placed throughout the parish. People bringing things in, not going through the permitting process. And when the zoning director started going over some of our present regulations, we actually have situations where people can put 3 houses on an acre based on certain zoning classes. And once the emergency declaration that I had done as parish president expired, we felt it was necessary to get the entire council involved in this, and we obviously didn't want to have 3 homes on acres, on 1 acre of land. And yet we had families like Cheryl mentioned that we went out and met, that we had less than an acre, but we had a legitimate situation where a family that actually moved into our parish had bought a home, and FEMA had gone in and just put in a trailer on the driveway without going through the permitting process, going through the parish planning department. And so we actually have taken place right now, and the reason Jerry and I both thought it was of such a nature we need to address it, and it's a short ordinance, it's not complicated at all. If you guys want to change a part of it to 6 months instead of 18, that's fine, but we actually have a floor contractor who has been bringing trailers in, and we see them going both directions all the time. Now we're having them take them out when we find them being there illegally. And so I think Council Thomas's point is well taken. We do have several families who have people still living in their homes, so we're just trying to get some control over this and to require them to go through parish planning and development. So if you guys want to send it to another committee and look at it, I mean, but you have things taking place in the parish right now that we don't want taking place. And by putting this in an ordinance, that you're going to have to go through planning and development, through the building office, and through the permitting process. So that's just my comments as far as why the council chairman and I talked about doing it. It was mailed out with your package with everything else, and just because it wasn't put on the agenda by noon on a Thursday a week ago, we added under 2/3. And we both decided that was the way to do it instead of amend the agenda before we mailed it. And so that's from the administration's perspective of what's going on this. And so if you're going to put it to a committee, I ask you to have a committee meeting tomorrow morning early or tonight late and really look into this, because we need to, and keep in mind, this is only the introduction of an ordinance. You're not voting on this tonight. You're just voting to introduce it,
Well,
which is going to be delayed 2 weeks anyway unless we call a special council meeting. So I would ask you to introduce it and then send it to a committee the next few days, and then that way we don't delay it or have to call a special council meeting for just this.
Mr. Valentine?
That's what I was going to ask, because under emergency ordinance, it actually can be introduced and voted on in the same night, and I was concerned that's what we were going to do tonight. If we just introducing this tonight, I don't have a problem with it, and certainly we'll have time to look at this in committee and scrutinize this. One question I do have, Parish President, you mentioned that we got people putting 3 trailers here, and now explain to me, how does this ordinance, I'm not going to take up too much time, but how does this ordinance stop that? I mean, this is actually an ordinance that's reducing the limit where you can put 1 trailer per half acre. I mean, if we got people doing things and we don't have an ordinance now, why are we not policing that?
We are policing that
Okay.
when we find out, but obviously 292 square miles, we've actually had FEMA contractors bring trailers in, drop them off, and we don't even know about it.
Past President, I had Flora bring a trailer in Dutchtown Acres and drop it off on the first lot in the front yard and put it together without the parish knowing it. I mean, I know what's going on, but my point is, why are we not at Flora, which is the FEMA representative that are putting these trailers together, making sure that they follow the rules? I mean, it was
we meet with them regularly, but you heard some last night. The FEMA does things on their own.
I understand.
And so Flora and FEMA meet with the parish officers at least weekly, and they are taking them out now, but that's just creating an extra burden on some families that really legitimately, as Cheryl pointed out, a family that need to stay there. So I think that trailer has actually been pulled out now from that location because it's in violation of parish ordinance, and so we're just trying to get something that we could all live with to truly help people, families, wanted people on their property. And, private. This is a private property issue only, separated completely from a commercial trailer park. It's just on a private property ordinance. So.
Mr. Hillensback.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with what Councilman Thompson said and the parish president. I think we need to go ahead and get this rolling. We can go ahead and introduce it tonight and maybe look at it in committee, have a meeting before the next council meeting, and if we have to make any changes, bring the changes that night when we vote on it. So I'll make a substitute motion to go ahead to introduce.
Substitute motion by Mr. Hillensback to introduce, a second by Mr. Thompson. Ms. Fontenot.
Well, I just wanted to say that, I wasn't clear. I thought we were passing an emergency ordinance, which is a law. And I didn't want to be a party to making a law without really fully understanding what exactly we wanted in it without discussing it with everybody first. And I thought it needed to go to committee for that reason. I will agree that since we can introduce it and we do have time to go and look at it and see exactly what we want in it and make sure that it's right, that when we come here we can unanimously support it. And so I will support this.
All right, then why don't we go ahead and vote on Mr. Hillensback's substitute motion right now. Is there any opposition to the substitute motion to introduce this as an ordinance tonight?
Objection.
One objection by Mr. Byricker. The substitute motion passes. We will introduce the ordinance. Thank you. Item number 5, we have some presentations. We have number 5A, a certificate for Chris Matassa for services on the Capital Area Human Services District Board, and that's from our Personnel Director, Mr. Roy Katz.
Thank you. This is a certificate of recognition that's presented to Chris Matassa, Capital Area Human Services District Board member. This certificate is presented to you in recognition for your hard work, dedication, and professionalism as an Ascension Parish representative on the Capital Area Human Service District Board. Ascension Parish greatly appreciates you and wishes you the best. It is good citizens like you that help to make our parish the best it can be. This is presented the second day of February 2006 by Ronnie Hughes, Ascension Parish President, and the entire Parish Council. Chris?
Thank you very much for this opportunity to come before you tonight. I've sat on this board for so long that I can't remember how long, and so that's a dangerous thing to be at that point in time. I think people need to get involved in their communities and offer services, and I think it's time for someone else to come forth and volunteer for this board. For those people in the audience who really aren't sure what the board actually represents, it represented Ascension Parish and funding for developmental disabilities, mental health, and substance abuse. And so this is a component of the parish that we needed to stay abreast and to see that services were rendered to our citizens, because, as you know, the link that is the weakest makes the whole entity weak, and so the weakest citizens are represented by our parish, and I hope that the next person that does participate is fully aware and willing to do this. And thank you very much for this.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for your service. We have some additional presentations tonight. Coach Alvin Thomas is going to live up to his nickname. Coach?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank this council and thank the president for giving us the opportunity to come tonight and present to you the champions of the 7th and 8th grade basketball team. I'd like to read the certificate, and as I read the certificate, I'll call your names, and at this time I'd like for you all to stand. As I call your name, I'd like for you to come up.
Fellas, when he calls your name, y'all come up right up here where everyone can see you.
This certificate of recognition, Parish of Ascension, present to Scotty Burgess, Downsville High School, 7th and 8th grade basketball team. This certificate is presented to you in recognition of your hard work, good sportsmanship, dedication to the pride of Donaldsonville High. Congratulations on having back-to-back 2 consecutive undefeated years and for being named as Ascension Parish basketball champs. Ascension Parish is very proud of you and wishes you continued success. Presented this second day of February 2006 by this entire council and our parish president. We want to thank you. We're very grateful and very appreciative in you all giving us the opportunity to be here tonight. And I want to thank the parents of these kids and thank them for bringing them here tonight. And I want to thank you guys for coming tonight. I'm very proud and very grateful that I am your coach. So congratulations again and continued success, not only academically, also athletically. Thank you, and as I call your name, come up. Kevlin Davis, Scotty. Kevlin is here. Dylan Custody. Lavelle Allen, Jason Freeman, Devontae Brown, Kevin Joseph, Todd Joseph. These are two brothers.
To move a little down so they can
And they all my first cousins. Tyler LeBuff, Sergeant Roseman, Trey Sullivan, this is our mayor's son, Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Brandon Thomas, right here. Donald Thomas, Akeem Turner, Dwight Wright, Howard Stevenson, which is not here tonight. Our manager, James Miles, he's not here also. And myself. So, again, I like the parents that made it here. Would you mind standing for me, please? Again, I want to thank you all for coming. I appreciate you bringing them up. I want to thank you guys for being here tonight. And again, let's make sure we continue working hard, continue doing a good job. Thank you, and you have a good night.
Some of the short ones come from short baby.
You're a football coach. Ronnie, you better stand on your tiptoes, man.
One, two, three,
Thank you, Coach. Congratulations, gentlemen. Now we'll move to item number 6, the Parish President's Report. Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brings back old memories when I come out of the Army of August in '74. My first teaching and coaching job was at Lorry Middle School, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. And Coach, I don't guess we were that good back then. I don't remember winning the parish championship, and I didn't have kids that tall either. I don't think in '74 and '75. But we commend you, young men, and we're grateful for your participation in athletics and the values that you can learn from that. And Chris come met with me last week, I guess it was, and said she thought it was time for me to appoint someone else to the Capital Area Human Resources, or Capital Area, and that's the way mental health at the state level has been broken down through a district. And we're sorry to see her get off that board, but so we have to turn in 3 new names to the governor. If any of you on the council have some names of people you think would be appropriate to serve there, let us know, because one of the issues that they'll be dealing with is the proposed cuts of about 23% in social services as part of the problems associated with the state budget situation. So we're going to need a strong advocate to help and do as much as we can there. Our report's going to be real short tonight. We have a district livestock show. About 7 parishes in Ascension now participating in these 4-H activities over at the Lamar Dixon Center. want to encourage our citizens to attend. It'll be today and tomorrow and Saturday. Young people who are displaying animals, a great family activity, and obviously these families who are staying in the mobile home park there and in our community are spending money in Ascension Parish, and we're appreciative of them coming here. As a reminder, February the 11th through the 18th is the LSU State Livestock Show, where young people and families from throughout Louisiana will be here for that show at Lamar Dixon. On February the 17th will be a Welcome to Ascension Parish night, where we formally thank these people for coming, spending money in Ascension Parish, and the Jambalaya Association is cooking 1,000 plates of jambalaya. Some of the Rotary clubs are doing white beans and salad, and so we hope each of you can make it out on that Friday night, February the 17th, to help these citizens throughout our state feel welcome to Ascension Parish. We've asked the Chambers of Commerce to promote this with businesses, to put banners up in the community, as you see sometimes when athletic tournaments are held, so people come here for this purpose. Know that we appreciate them for doing this, and they could go anywhere in the state where it has a facility that could handle it. So it's a real quality family thing in our parish, as well as a wonderful economic development opportunity. So we really need to work with these young people. The only other thing I must say is about the courthouses, and I'll be doing a news conference in the next day or so to address some other issues, but the courthouse annex is just about ready. We all have a lot to be thankful for there. It's so many years overdue. The carpet was put in last week. The wall panels should be installed by next week. We did a walkthrough with the electrical engineer contractors earlier this week, testing the equipment. If you haven't been over there, the cameras have been installed, the sound systems are in place. They're testing it. It looks like there's a strong possibility that next week the building may actually be ready to be turned over to the parish. So let's keep our fingers crossed. The work is progressing at the courthouse in the parish seat in Donaldsonville. The renovations are progressing there, and that project looks like it's going on schedule. So if you haven't been over to see either one of those, I strongly encourage you to go by the annex and see. It's a beautiful room. It's got some very fine equipment in it, and be something that will really enhance our ability to communicate with our citizens with government programs and on television, and to show them what we're doing in the parish. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Item number 7 is the consent agenda. We have only one item, and those are the minutes of the regular council meeting of January the 5th. Motion by Mr. Hillensback, second by Mr. Thompson.
Excuse me, Martin, I just wanted to mention that February 17th is the state conference in Alexandria. President Hughes was talking to the council.
It's in March, Mr. Thompson.
It's March 17th, Mr. Thompson.
Okay.
But that was a second, wasn't it, Mr. Thompson, in addition to all that?
Cancel your reservations.
To adopt the minutes of the council meeting on January the 5th. Is there any discussion? Is there any opposition? Then the minutes are adopted, can be published. Thank you. Item number 8, the Utilities Committee. Councilman Jared Byriger.
No report at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Byriger. Item number 9, the Personnel Committee, Chairman George Valentine.
Thank you, Chairman. No activity this time, so I have no report, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Valentine. Item number 10, the Recreation Committee, Chairman Alvin Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On Tuesday night, we met. We had a very good meeting. The recreation for Parish in itself is doing real well. Met with Mrs. Kitchen, who is our director now. That was our first meeting. We met with the director on last Tuesday, and we were very pleased with her hard work and with the implementing of some of the master plan that we have planned for the recreation department in the parish. Also, I'd just like to say that I encourage everybody to try and make one of the meetings. We meet every last Tuesday in the month. Just so happened this month we won't be meeting on the 28th because it's Mardi Gras. Those 2 days we'll be meeting February 21st. So we'd ask that we put that on the calendar. We'll be meeting the February 21st, the Tuesday before the last Tuesday of this month. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Item number 11, Transportation Committee Chairwoman Cheryl Fontenot.
We haven't met since the last time I gave a report, but the next transportation meeting is always on the second Tuesday of the month at 7 p.m. at DPW. I would ask that Ms. Suzanne get word to Liz Bro and have her have the vice chair be prepared to take that meeting that night. My husband will have open heart surgery that day, and I know I will not be able to attend. So, Suzanne, if you can pass that on for me, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fontenot, and please let Stephen know that our prayers and thoughts are with him and your entire family as he undergoes his surgery. Item number 12, the Strategic Planning Committee, Chairman Kent Shake Snyder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first order of business we had was have the introduction of an ordinance creating the Ascension Parish Community Television Advisory Board. This board was simply modeled after our Waterways Commission, and we're creating the board, and they will get together and make bylaws and other rules and regulations that will come to the strategic planning and the council for approval.
Motion to...
Just a clarification. Is this an introduction of an ordinance, or is this a recommendation of strategic planning?
It's an introduction of an ordinance. It was by recommendation of strategic planning.
All right. Motion by Ms. Fontenot to introduce the ordinance. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Valentine to introduce the ordinance. Is there discussion? Is there opposition? The ordinance is introduced.
We also have a recommendation for hiring an attorney and an appraiser to deal with adjudicated property, which was a recommendation from strategic planning. We have a
motion by Mr. Dempsey Lambert, second by, I'm sorry, Mr. Thompson?
Yes, sir.
To hire an attorney and an appraiser to deal with adjudicated properties. Discussion, Mr. Byriger.
Mr. Chairman, if you like, we'll let Mr. Babin go first, see what he has, and then I'll go after.
Please, Mr. Babin.
I just wanted to let you know this cost we will pass on to the person purchasing the property as part of our program. So this isn't a cost the parish will bear. That's why I just want to let you know that may make it more palatable.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Babin.
Yes.
Mr. Byriger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I plan on supporting Mr. Lambert's motion, but I'd like to offer a substitute to it, if we can, to recommend receiving proposals on qualifications, so we'll have an idea of who to hire. I mean, I can't see hiring somebody without knowing their qualifications. So I'd like to ask for.
I think that would be an amendment to the motion to
Right,
include requests for qualifications. Motion by Mr. Byriger, second by Ms. Fontenot, to amend the motion to...
And maybe we can move on it in 2 weeks if everybody feels comfortable and has somebody.
I think that's advisable because I've already gotten a couple of telephone calls from people interested in those particular positions. So is there any further discussion on Mr. Byriger's amendment? Is there any opposition? The amendment passes. We'll go to the original motion. Is there any further discussion on the motion as amended? Is there any opposition? The motion as amended passes. And we will get with our, Ms. Suzanne, you'll get with our legal counsel and with Mr. Parrington, I guess, to help us draft these qualifications. Okay. Mr. Shakespeare, you have the
next
floor.
order of business, item C. We were very fortunate to have Mr. Paul Keller come and make his presentation at strategic planning. Had a chance to spend some time with him, and everyone was very well impressed and received, and I'm very happy to offer as a recommendation from strategic planning the approval of the grant consultant contract for Mr. Paul Keller.
So moved. Second.
That was a motion by Mr. Thomas, second by Ms. Fontenot, to approve the contract for a grant consultant contract with Mr. Paul Keller. Discussion? Is there opposition? Congratulations, Mr. Keller. I know he's here. Thank you, Mr. Keller, for being here.
And D, Mr. Babin, if there's any questions. These next three are all part of the ordinance that is agreement that is needed to take care of the Ascension Civic Center. We had to abolish some boards and change some ordinances and dissolve some ordinances in order to take care of the record keeping and everything that we needed to do to get this done. And Mr. Babin, could you explain the procedure?
Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, this is three separate items in front of you, but they deal with the exact same subject matter. The subject matter is the Sorrento Civic Center. There was a joint commission formed between the school board, the municipalities, and the parish at one time to administer that facility. The cities pulled out of that, which left the school board and the parish of Ascension still in that commission. As I told you before, there were overlapping leases. This is on the 16th school board section. The Civic Center sits on that school board property. There were overlapping leases with the BMX track, with the cancer research, with the Cancer Detection Center, with the Civic Center, and Ms. Gwynn called it to our attention that some of them were expired. We looked at that as an opportunity basically to clean up all those old leases and get around the confusion. And our recommendation was that we enter into a brand new lease with the school board. Simply, they will let us use and run the facility. We pay the expenses. The second thing is that we wanted to get rid of that old Civic Center commission. It's in the ordinances, and to have it, it's not been functional. I don't even know if it has a board remaining. We're doing an introduction of an ordinance at letter E to revoke 18.1, which forms the commission. So that's simply an ordinance to revoke the creation of the commission. Finally, there's a joint agreement to dissolve and abolish that commission. I wanted to get the school board to sign off on this. Since they're part of the commission, I wanted it to be joint. So those are the three documents that all does the same thing. I think you've all reviewed and had the documents. We're just tremendously simplifying what's going on out there at the Civic Center.
And with that, the first part of it, to enter in cooperative endeavor agreement and lease with the school board for the Ascension Parish Civic Center and related facilities. And
Motion.
Motion by Ms. Fontenot. Second by Mr. Byriger to enter into a cooperative endeavor agreement and lease with the school board for the Ascension Parish Civic Center and related facilities. Is there discussion? Is there opposition to the motion? Then the motion passes. Mr. Schexnayder.
Part E, strategic planning recommends an introduction of an ordinance revoking Section 18.1 of the Ascension Parish Code of Ordinances to dissolve the Ascension Civic Center Commission.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Byriger.
Second.
Second by Ms. Fontenot to introduce the ordinance revoking Section 18.1 of the Ascension Parish Code of Ordinances to dissolve the Ascension Civic Center Commission. Is there discussion? Is there opposition? Then the motion passes, and Ms. Suzanne, you'll take the necessary steps to publish this. Mr. Schexnayder.
And lastly, recommendation to establish a joint agreement to dissolve and abolish the Ascension Parish Civic Commission.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Mr. Hillensbeck. Second by Mr. Dempsey Lambert to establish a joint agreement to dissolve and abolish the Ascension Parish Civic Commission. Is there discussion? Is there opposition? Then that motion passes.
And Mr. Chairman, if there, we'd like to offer right now so people will know if there's no conflict Monday at 5 o'clock that we could have the special meeting of strategic planning before the drainage board meeting. Can we check and see if there's a
Ms. Suzanne, would you know if there's something that's going to be held before the drainage board? You didn't have something already, Kent? There wasn't something already scheduled?
We had a meeting at 4.
At 4, that's correct. 4 o'clock. Ms. Suzanne, if you would get that 3 in a row, huh, Kent?
Well, we need to get this done.
Okay. Ms. Suzanne, if you could get that notification out. Thank you. Finished, Mr. Schexnayder?
Yes, sir. That
Thank
completes
you.
my report.
Item number 13, a release between Anthony Mays and the Parish of Ascension, a resolution accepting the release. Legal counsel, Ricky Babin.
This is an agreement to basically release Mr. Anthony Mays. This is was a contract entered to by this particular person to do some removal, demolition, and cleanup on some properties along. One was on 621 and one was on Cannon Road. Two on Cannon Road. Because of a road or intersection widening project. I think both of those projects have been delayed. There was no immediate need to remove them, and the contract was very stringently written, and I believe that the gentleman who's going to do the work really didn't want to or could not perform, or for whatever reason. We acknowledged that we sent the man and he was in default, and he said, look, y'all just keep the buildings. I was going to do it. My bid price included keeping the buildings. Y'all keep the buildings. I think DPW at this point wants to keep the buildings, at least for the interim basis. They have a use for them. So what we're doing is basically said, you give us back the buildings at no cost, and we'll release all claims against you for your liquidated damages for your delay in performing your contract.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Thompson, second by Mr. Scheck-Snyder. Discussion, Mr.
Yeah, I was going
Hillensback?
to say that in the description and the resolution, it's 3 addresses. 2 of them on Shealy Place, 13003 Shealy Place. The other one is 13008 Shealy Place. And the third one is 38103 Highway 621.
Just correcting a verbal. Yeah, it's two on Shealy and one on 621. Further discussion? Is there opposition to the motion? Then the motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Babin. Item number 14 is the introduction of an ordinance to consider an ordinance amending the Ascension Parish zoning map from medium-intensity residential to crossroad commercial, property located on the southwest corner of Louisiana Highway 44 and Germany Road for Alvin Miller, Ronnie Miller, and Cody Miller, and this is zoning review ID number 1407.05. We will entertain a motion to introduce this ordinance. Motion by Mr. Dempsey Lambert, second by Mr. Byrigger. Is there discussion? Is there opposition? The motion passes. Item number 15 is an introduction to an ordinance to consider an ordinance amending the Ascension Parish zoning map from conservation to medium-intensity residential for property located on the south side of Louisiana Highway 429 or Cornerview Road, approximately 2,300 feet east of Louisiana Highway 73 for Rick Metter, and its zoning review ID number 1404.05.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Thompson. Second by Mr. Thomas to introduce the ordinance. Is there discussion? Is there opposition? And the motion passes. Item number 16 is the introduction to an ordinance to consider an ordinance amending the Ascension Parish zoning map from rural to crossroad commercial for property located at the intersection of Louisiana Highway 935, Stringer Bridge Road, and Louisiana Highway 22 for Ralph C. Mendoza et al.
Motion.
Zoning review ID number 1386.05. Motion by Mr. Valentine. Second by Mr. Byrigger. Is there a discussion? Is there opposition? Then the motion passes. Item number 18 is the introduction of an ordinance to consider an ordinance authorizing acquisition of immovable property and all improvements thereon from Tuscany Apartments, LLC, for the purpose of constructing road improvements on Boudreaux-Orisseau Road.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Thompson, second by Mr. Scheck-Snyder. Is there discussion? Is there opposition? The motion passes. Thank you. Item number 19 is a public hearing to consider an ordinance authorizing transfer of title to the City of Donaldsonville pursuant to the Cooperative Endeavor Agreement dated January 5, 2006 of certain movable property owned by the parish, namely one 1997 International 6-yard dump truck and one...
Did we not
Skip.
an introduction? 17?
17.
Move to 18.
I apologize. You're correct. Thank you. I crossed it out inadvertently. Item number 17, which we skipped. Forgive me. It's also the introduction to an ordinance. Is to consider an ordinance authorizing acquisition of immovable property and all improvements thereon from R. Russell McMahon for the purpose of constructing road improvements on Boudreaux Road. Motion by Mr. Valentine, second by Mr. Byrigger, forgiveness by Mr. Hillensbeck. Is there any discussion? Is there any opposition? Then that motion passes. Now we will move.
I'm surprised Mr. Thompson didn't catch that.
I seen it.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson, for giving us that opportunity. Things are happening on Boudreaux Road. Mr. Babin, do your stuff.
This is a caveat. I believe last time we introduced 18, we introduced it with an amendment where you see the word 1990, where you see the number 1997, it's a 1999 international truck. So I believe it was introduced as amended, so I'd ask you to vote as amended. The ordinance reads as follows: to transfer title pursuant to cooperative endeavor agreement dated December 2005, certain movable property owned by the Parish of Ascension, whereas the Parish of Ascension owns a 1999 international dump truck and a 2002 international dump truck that is surplus and is no longer needed by the parish. Be it ordained by the Ascension Parish Council, the governing authority in and for the Parish of Ascension does hereby authorize the sale, conveyance, and transfer of all right, title, and interest in one 1999 International 6-yard dump truck bearing identification number 1HTSCAB-R7VH491230 and one 2002 International 6-yard dump truck bearing vehicle identification number 1HTSCAB-R82H552354 to the City of Donaldsonville as is, without warranty of any kind, under the terms and conditions set forth in the cooperative endeavor agreement attached hereto and made a part hereof. And the agreement is attached. The sales price is basically $14,000 for 2 trucks.
Motion to move to public hearing, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Mr. Hillensbeck to open the public hearing, second by Mr. Schexnayder. Is there any opposition? Motion passes. The public hearing is open. If there's any member of the public who would like to speak on this particular item, please sign in with our secretary.
Motion to close.
Motion to close by Mr. Byriger.
Motion on the ordinance.
Second to close by Mr. Thompson. Is there any discussion or opposition? Then the motion passes. Now, item 20 is the ordinance as amended to show a 1999 truck instead of a 2002 truck. That was Mr. Thompson's motion, and a second by Mr.
Instead of a 97. The 2002 is real. The 1990.
Wait, okay, I got this one.
Is a 1999, right, Ed?
Okay, we got that straight. We know which truck we're talking about. Motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Is there any opposition? And that ordinance passes. Item number 21 is a public hearing to consider an ordinance amending the personnel policy manual of the Ascension Parish government on Section 5, working conditions, Section R, travel expense, maximum reimbursement to increase to $75 per diem for travel. Mr. Babin.
It says to amend the personnel manual of the Ascension Parish government, whereas the Parish of Ascension moves to replace the last paragraph of Section 5, working conditions, Section R, travel expenses, reimbursement of the personnel manual of the Ascension Parish government, which lists the maximum reimbursable amounts for meals, including tips, as supported by receipts. Breakfast 15, lunch 20, dinner 40, total per diem 75. Whereas the Ascension Parish Council moves to replace the last paragraph of Section V, working conditions, Section R, travel expense reimbursable amount for meals, as supported by receipts, to read as follows: per diem for meals, $75. Be it ordained that the Ascension Parish Council is the governing authority, hereby does authorize the above amendment personnel policy manual of the Ascension Parish government.
Motion to open a public hearing by Mr. Byriger. Second by Mr. Dempsey Lambert. Is there any opposition? Public hearing is open. If any member of the public wishes to speak on this item, please sign in with our secretary.
Motion to close.
Just a moment.
Good evening.
Ms. Catherine Goppelt.
Good evening, Mr. McConnell. I guess you're now Chairman McConnell and Parish President and council members. I would ask before you continue with this particular item that you check in the records that this item was introduced. I do not believe that you ever introduced this at your council meeting. And if you did not introduce it first, you can't have a public hearing on it. Thank you.
Has anybody else signed up to speak on this? Then we'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Motion by Mr. Byriger. Second by Mr. Scheck-Snyder to close the public hearing. Is there any opposition? Public hearing is closed. Item number 22 is the ordinance. Ms. Fontenot.
Mr. McConnell, at the meeting in January in this building here, there was a resolution made at the request of Mr. Katz to change something in this ordinance, to make an amendment. I asked at that time that it be sent back to committee if there seemed to be a problem with it, but everybody moved forward with it. We found out after that you cannot amend an ordinance with a resolution. Therefore, it had to be introduced. I checked the agenda last time. We did not introduce this at the January, the third Thursday meeting. Therefore, it has not been introduced. We had not seen it.
I had it introduced on the January the 5th meeting.
No, it was brought up as a resolution only and passed as a resolution.
Mr. Babin.
Could I just ask it?
Just a moment. I'm checking the minutes myself here. What page are you on now?
First one right there, just look at mine.
I'm sorry. Page
3. Mr. Byron?
It's all from the legal counsel. I just moved it and we check our facts. And if we have to open the public hearing again, he says it's more than appropriate to do so. That's my motion.
2.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Byringer?
Consulting with legal counsel, I just moved that we table this till next meeting and we check our facts. And if we have to open the public hearing again, he says it's more than appropriate to do so. That's my motion.
Well,
Would it be appropriate to introduce tonight if that's the case?
Ms. Babbitt, I'm looking at item on page 2 in the second paragraph of the minutes that we just adopted as the official minutes of that meeting, and I'll read it. Ensuing a request from Human Resources Director Roy Katz, it was unanimously agreed to hold a public hearing on Thursday, January 19th, 7 p.m. in the auditorium of Ascension Parish Department of Public Works to consider an ordinance amending the Ascension Parish Personnel Policy Manual, Section 5, Working Section, Section R, Travel Expense Maximum Reimbursement to increase. The motion was offered by McConnell, second by Thompson. Now, according to this, we were supposed to have... I mean, is that an introduction or is that not? These are now the official minutes of the meeting. I'm not going to dispute anything, but let's stay kosher. These are now the official minutes of the meeting. That's what happened. But that, obviously, this is not January the 19th.
Mr. Katz, is this some type of pressing, out of an abundance of caution, let's just reschedule. It says a public hearing was called. That's probably implicit that it was introduced. It doesn't say a motion was made and seconded to introduce. So if the minutes don't say it, this is the law of the land when it comes to what y'all have done.
Can we go ahead and introduce
I would
tonight?
recommend that we table it and reschedule it if there's no precedent.
And what's your motion, Mr. Byringer?
That we table this, and if it has not been introduced, then introduce it at the next council meeting. If we find it has, then we do not have to have the public hearing again, but if we wish, we can open the public hearing again and then actually vote on it at the next council meeting if it was introduced. If not, we'll introduce it.
Motion and second. Motion by Mr. Byringer, second by Mr. Scheck-Snyder. Mr. Valentine, was this item discussed at the Personnel Committee, do you know?
This was the item that was discussed and was broke down in 3 different meals. Mr. Katz and I had discussed this. He brought that, I think he mentioned that we had discussed. It was the meeting that I was not in attendance. I was absent that night when y'all discussed it here. And essentially, Ms. Fontenot is right. It was not introduced. So and we did find out after that it had to be introduced since it was an ordinance. So it really wasn't, Mr. Babin is right, it really wasn't properly introduced. So it needs to be introduced. And that can be done tonight, and we can still take it up in committee. I can easily call a committee meeting, and Ms. Fontenot, if you can take it back to personnel.
And let me just say, because my name is here, I was the one who made the motion to introduce it. And if you read all the minutes, it doesn't say the ordinance was introduced. It said a public hearing was called. So I think the minutes are in order. It was introduced, but for some reason it was not done properly. It was not handled properly. It is not a pressing issue. I don't think any of us are going to starve to death for this $75 in the near future. So, like you say, with the abundance of caution to stay according to Hoyle, I don't have any objections to Mr. Byriger's motion. Mr. Hillensbeck, you have a comment?
Mr. Babin, would it be appropriate to go ahead and just do an introduction tonight, and we can go ahead and look at this in committee and bring it back? Is there a problem doing an introduction? It's already on the agenda. It's not as an introduction. Well, I say just to move it along, to get it moving. I'd like to offer a substitute motion to go ahead and add it to the agenda.
Substitute motion by Mr. Hillensbeck to amend the agenda to include this as an introduction, and you do have the ordinance in front of you. Is there a second to Mr. Hillensbeck? Second by Mr. Thompson. Discussion by Ms. Fontenot.
This is exactly the same ordinance as I see it that we passed the first time, which is why I had a question about it, okay? Listen, I've been in the hospital for 11 days with my husband. I didn't get to read this packet. I didn't get to read the minutes. But I can take you to the film and show you where the motion was made and what was done at the motion, okay? But the whole point of the matter is what Mr. Katz wanted removed out of here was the breakdown. So why would we want to introduce the same ordinance that we already have? We just need to clarify it. That's why I'm saying we need to take our time to make sure we're doing the right thing. Period.
Is there any further discussion? Let me ask a question. Roy, where are you? You come to this mic, please. We all understand it. I think we started talking about this in personnel committee meeting in December.
Yes, sir. And we had talked about it, and one of the issues that we had a concern with was the breakdown of the meals, because and this is really for the administration people when they travel, it's different. It was different than what the council did, and the problem was when we revised the manual and brought it to the council for approval, we left, and we didn't call it an example, but we gave an example in there of what the meals would be to $75.
So it's my understanding that all we're doing here is saying instead of limiting you to $15 for breakfast, if you want to spend $75 for breakfast and go the rest of the day without eating or go on your own, that's what we're doing?
Yes, sir. And basically what I understand in talking to the personnel committee, Councilman is right, we did discuss this in personnel committee, and what happened when I read this at the January meeting in Donaldsonville here last time, just explaining that's all we wanted to do was bring it similar to what, in fact, the suggestion was made, getting as close to what the council had as possible. And so that's what we were trying to do. There's no change to it other than get that 3 meals out of that breakdown in meals. When I read the ordinance and the motion was made to accept it, I just read simply what I had here. If it was an incorrect procedure, I was just trying to make a point when I read it to get those meals straightened out. That's all I wanted out of the manual.
The administration would ask that you guys introduce the ordinance.
Just a moment, Mr. President.
What Ms. Fontenot is saying, the old ordinance with the breakdown with 15 for breakfast and 20 for lunch and 40 for dinner are still in this ordinance. And what she wanted to do is make sure that that is changed.
It can be corrected and brought up.
So when it go back to, we introduce it, send it back to committee, straighten it out, and then bring it back. without that, with the changes.
Well, just a moment. That's not what that says at all. It says, whereas the old ordinance says this, therefore now it says that. That's what this just says. It says we're going to change this to make it say that. Right there. It says it right there.
All we were asking to do was get the 3 meals out, the breakdown of the 3 meals. We were using that as an example, and finance could not pay us because it's in, because it's in the ordinance. If somebody turned in $17 for breakfast, they couldn't get paid for it because we had to abide by the rules here. So as a result, we were asking to get the breakdown of meals out of the ordinance. And that was a mistake when the manual was revised. That's all I'm asking for.
Ms. Fontenot?
Mr. McConnell, this ordinance is still showing the breakdown just like the original one we said. That's what Mr. Katz is trying to get out. But what I'm trying to point out is if you introduce this ordinance, you're introducing it with the same identical information as the other one. He wants the breakdown removed from the ordinance.
I understand what you're saying. According to what I read, that's what it's going to do.
I think for the record, Mike, maybe we ought to just read the ordinance, Mr. Chairman, because my copy, I'm not sure what you're looking at, Councilwoman Fontenot, but my copy says, whereas the Ascension Parish Council moves to replace the last paragraph, which is the breakdown, Section 5, working conditions, Section R, travel expense reimbursements, amount for meals including tips, as supported by receipts to read as follows. Per diem, 4 meals, $75.
Mine's got breakfast and everything else.
Yeah, mine does too. but
It says
you
to
gotta read-
remove
you gotta
that
read the
and
next
put it to
paragraph.
this. The next paragraph says to make this read this
This
instead.
is what we want. We just need to introduce it and move
It's
on.
specifically saying what you're taking out and what you're changing it to. That's all it says. That's all it says. Is there further discussion? Then we'll vote on on Mr. Hillensbeck's substitute motion to introduce this ordinance at the next council meeting. Is there opposition to that motion?
No, it's introduced tonight.
Introduce the ordinance, I'm sorry, and have the public hearing at the next meeting.
Exactly.
Is there opposition? Then the motion passes, the ordinance is introduced. Thank you. And if we're arguing over that, then things are going really good in Ascension Parish. Huh? Mr. Byriga, item 23. Motion to adjourn by Mr. Byriga.